You're welcome to this session, and the session is the case number NG02022022. What we'll be taking a look at, especially with the objective of the session that we have, is the cross lays of politics and spirit civilization. This is also very important because essentially, as the time begins to draw closer, we will begin to see certain grey lines between politics and spirit civilization. This has been done in time past. There are certain civilizations, and certain centuries where governance deployed a huge amount of spirit intelligence, in its acts of politics or political activities. And it seems like those times are coming back again. So we're going to be taking a special look at the case number NG02022022. Now let's kickstart things with a very introductory part of it, and that is that politics is first spiritual. This is the basic understanding you need to have about anything, basically, not even politics. A lot of everything is first spiritual. Now what that means is that there is a type and shadow of everything we see physically. There is a mirror dimension of it. Well, maybe not a mirror dimension, but there is a spiritual mirror of it. I'll give an example. Like what you see on your screen right now is the waves of the waters, right? Now, if we're talking about a larger body of water like the seas and the oceans, now many of us think that it's natural for the body of water to move without we really understanding that what causes the tide levels to rise and fall is actually the gravitational pull of the moon. Now, we don't see the moon. The moon is not on the earth. Many times we don't even think about the existence of the moon. But the moon has an influence upon the earth, upon the waters of the earth. And that's what is responsible for the tide level and tides of the waters. So that's the same thing. A lot of things that are happening spiritually, we might not really think about it, but the influence they have on our lives, on events, on happenstances still exists. And that's one way to begin to look at things in order to better understand it. Now, there are at least three layers of political events, three grand layers. They've got other sub layers, but these are the three hierarchical parts of it. We've got first spiritual. That means that everything starts first spiritually. So when we're talking about the ordination of things, when we're talking about the predestination of things, really starts in the spiritual level. That's where destinies are concocted, and all of these things are formulated. And also the second layer is the astral or the cosmic level. Now this is what happens in the astral or the cosmic level. A lot of things that has been predestinated or things that have been ordinated in the spiritual level are being played out by events in the astral or cosmic level. Sometimes this could be by heavenly bodies or planetary bodies. It's the same reason why we have people like astrologers, stargazers, diviners, and all of that, who look into the heavenly bodies like the planets, and stars, and are able to interpret their positioning as certain events that might happen. It's the same thing, okay? So the astral level is a level where things happen, is a recording, is a telling of a tale of things that have happened or things that have been foretold about or things that have been instituted in the spiritual level. And then we'll have the final level or the third level, the third layer, which is this physical. So this is where everything culminates, where time now plays its part in things that have been played out in the astral or cosmic level and things that have been ordained in the spiritual level. So in a way, the spiritual level is the place where the things are signed. The astral or cosmic level are the levels where things are sealed, and the physical level are the levels where things are delivered. We must understand this hierarchy because towards the end of this session, you will understand why this is very important. Now, we need to understand that when things happen in the physical, it's already getting late. Why? Because two other layers of events have already happened. and the physical most times is the final part. However, sometimes in the physical time, it seems, because we are bound to time, that when things are initiated in the physical time, we think things are just starting out. No, that is actually the beginning of the final play of things that have already happened in the spiritual and also in the astral or cosmic level. So when something is late, doesn't mean it is doomed, okay? Because there are ways to also control or manipulate things along those lines. So what it actually means is that things are starting to unfold in the physical. However, you can refold things through certain means of manipulation, or permutations and combinations in order to alter, or sustain the events or eventualities of certain things. Okay. So the leverage we have, or the leverage there is that in the spirit realm, there is no time constraint. What that means is that when things are already happening physically in time, you can go into higher dimensions or higher level where the hold of time can either be manipulated or doesn't exist, and then you can recreate things, and then they would play again right on time in the physical dimension. So you can always engage the spirit, and it's one of the reasons where when negative things happen, people resort to prayers, and all of certain spiritual practices to see how they can avert certain things or reduce the effect or completely annihilate it all the same. Okay. So there are two important parts of the spiritual level, especially when timing is concerned. In the book of Revelations, chapter 1, verse 8, Jesus described himself as the one who was, who is, and is to come. Now, that is important because it gives you the scope, eternal scope, that he has authority and jurisdiction over the eternal past, present, and eternal future. Everything is seen right in his present. Now, there's another designation that seems similar to this in Revelations chapter 17, verse 8, and which is for the beast. The beast is the one who was, who is not, but is to come. Now, what does that mean? It means that in the astral level, because the beast is not necessarily physical, it's a spiritual entity. So that means it's got ordination, it's got history, things have happened in the past. Now, because it dwells also in the spirit dimension and sometimes has influence in the astral or cosmic dimension, is able to affect things that would happen in the near future because things are already playing out in the astral or the cosmic dimension. But one thing it doesn't have is that present time authority. And to do that, he needs man because it's not physical, okay? And that's why many times the spiritual things, either sinister or divine, in order to effect things in the present, need the agreement or the partnership of a man. Men are those who live in time, okay? So the beast or the system of the civilization of the beast need partnership with man in order to imitate or emulate the one who was, who is, and is to come. I hope you get that drift. I don't want to really bore you with so much details. So let's take a look briefly into politics and the spirit, how some of these things happen. It's very important. Now, the image you'll see on the screen talks about a being who is looking through a portal and seeing another being in the other dimension. Now, this is really how politics works. It's a partnership of twin dimension. So there is a spiritual dimension, and then there is mirrored of another dimension, either physical or astral dimension, and there is a trading or transcommunication between such dimension is such that there is alliance or forging of some form of fraternity, and this is how political systems work essentially. So let's take a look at the politics in the spiritual realm, how the hierarchical disposition looks like. At first, we have the highest level, which are thrones. These are entities that control galaxies and civilizations and eons. They are very super entities and control a vast array of time, space, and other spiritual matter. Now, we also have beings that are called dominion. Now, dominions are those who have the sphere of influence over a certain reality, a certain sphere. So, for example, while thrones could control galaxies and multi-dimensions and multiverses, dominions control maybe a star, maybe a solar system or a star system, and all of that. So that's the level that is being broken down. Then we also have principalities, which are sub-levels to the dominion, which now the dominion is broken into pieces, and then we have certain princes handling each of these pieces, so they become principalities. So we have power centers. These are centers, institutions, or civilizations that give life to the principalities, dominion, and also the throne levels. Then we have economy and commerce. These are trading enterprises that allow a smooth running of the civilization or the system. Then we've got gates. These are entities that are positioned at location portals, which are very important for transportation or even communication devices. Sometimes in scripture you hear about angels that hold the four winds of the earth. These are location portals. These angels are actually gates that own such things. Okay. You might hear of things coming from the north and all of that, or the wind that comes from the east. These are by the instrumentality of gate. Anything that has to do with precise positioning or cardinals through the instrumentality of gate. Then we've got angels, the one a lot of people know. These are messengers that carry intelligence or intel across this dimension. So they are the voices, the words, and the messages in this realm. Then we've got songs. Songs are also very important because they are seals that either record or enact certain activities or policies from any of these levels of spiritual hierarchy. Then we've got decrees, which are the legalities that brings to effect, okay, that causes things to unfold. So it's songs and decrees usually sometimes go together, and decrees usually the final phase before the execution of anything that's being born in the spiritual realm. Now, you need to note this, that spiritual politics always needs a human counterpart, because especially we're talking about politics or political activities here on earth or wherever humans exist. So spirit must influence or inspire the human counterpart with their ideas, ideologies, and all of that. And essentially also humans must embody the spirit entities before it can manifest here on earth. Every spirit needs human counterpart. Now, there is a certain system known as the Antichrist system. The Antichrist is an ideology, a civilization, but essentially a human being must embody this civilization to become the human Antichrist. Just the same way we have a spiritual Antichrist. The same thing with the church. The church is called the body of Christ, and essentially upon the earth, the church must come to a point where it fully embodies the civilization of the Christ, and that is the point of rapture. Okay. So let's take a look at politics in this physical realm. Then we're going to see if there are similarities or differences between them. Now, for the throne level in the spiritual realm, the representation here on earth are the G7 or the G8. These are the global leaders that controls how the institution of the earth functions. Then the dominions are the presidents of each countries or each nations. And we have principalities, which are like the governors or the heads of certain industries within the nations that are under the president. Then we've got powers. Powers represent the institutions of culture or education, anything that determines how people live. Economy and commerce obviously is given to the banks. They control the legal tender and all of that. Gates are captains of industries and also captains of territories. Angels are actually the roles of thought leaders and celebrities, people who educate people, the populace informally, and also affect culture. Then we've got songs. In this case, our education and entertainment means that are able to tell people what to do, how to behave, or basically how to see things. Then decrees are actually the laws and the policies of the land. So when you look at it, there is a difference. There is the same structure, but different entities take on the place. So you look at the spiritual realm, so you see it's the same thing, and back at the physical, the same thing, but just a different nomenclatures to it altogether. All right. So it's important at this point to talk about the role of priests and prophets in governance. Now, in governance, they might not have that designation, but that is the function that they have. So here, the priests and the prophets have the role, and they're the ones who are in agreement. They serve as the middleman, okay, between spirit policies and earth policies. They are the mediators. They are the ones who bring the concord between these and then make it known to the kings, the governors, and those who are the heads of state. Okay. Now, they also serve as human resources and quality control. They are able to tell what the higher dimensions want, and then how that can be implemented as well. And as a result of this, they serve in the role of advisory and also strategy. So sometimes maybe when there's a war or when there's a crash in the market, they also consult these people who might be called gatekeepers. They serve as priests or prophets to let know what is going to happen next. And it's also because it's a divine order, it's a divine trinity of a king, priest, and prophet. Okay, these has always been. Every king must have a priest and a prophet. That is how the trinity of a system or a kingdom works. Okay, so there is no such thing as new nations, essentially. But we need to understand what the concept of new nations really are. Why is this? Now, it's just an already existing civilization that is fighting for expression in the world. There are already civilizations in the spirit that are playing out in the astral and cosmic dimension and looking for effects of flow in the earth dimension. So when you hear things like a new world order, a new global currency, a new this and that, it's just they're not essentially new in the sense that they've never existed before, but they are coming afresh in the time that is the time is now, which is where humans, have the domain of expression. Now, every nation exists today already has an old template it's running on. Okay, and I'm going to be sharing some of that template with us pretty soon. And this is why spirits seek to influence kings so that their economy, that's the economy of this spirit civilization, can find expression in the present time. What you need to understand is everyone is fighting for this present time, because that's where all the activities, really have the chronos and the kairos having its full effect. So let's take a look at the cycle of some of the cities, and then you begin to check if the city you dwell already has some of the cycles already playing out. The first is Eden or Zion. Now, this is usually characterized by peace and harmony, and this is always dependent on Yod He Vav He. I would call Elohim for the course of this class. Now, this civilization expands only based on the relationship with Elohim, okay, or God, as the case may be. So this is what heaven, the kingdom of heaven, really is. Okay. Now we also have Babylon. Now, Babylon is a system that seeks expression outside the jurisdiction of Elohim. Now, this is fueled by knowledge of good and evil. There's always this polarity and disparity. It's also seems to be a capitalist and prosperous system. So things like Mammon, always have, they are like the principalities involved in this Babylon system of governance. Now we also have Egyptian system of governance. Now this is a system that thrives on servitude and also classification of humans into different status groups, now giving them varying privileges. So when things like races or we have a caste system or ethnicity, this is an Egyptian system of an Egyptian civilization. Okay, and many times these are also highly religious systems that pride themselves more in religion, using it as a system to divide, people further. We also have the Assyrian system. Now, this is a system that thrives on volatility or violence, and it uses the instrument of war to exercise dominance. It also uses brute strength and force upon the people. Okay, so anything that thrives on violence, war, as the Assyrian system at the heart of it. Then we've got Sodom. Sodom is a culture that is hugely characterized by celebration of lewdness, immorality, lawlessness, and sexuality and all of that. So there's more, but these are the 5 topical ones. So I want you to take a look at, do a spirit mapping of your area, of your territory, of your nation, and see which of these systems are actually, having expressions in it. Now, but there is one thing you also need to note, that there are mutations and synergies of the cities in today's world. So you can have one more than one. Okay, so it doesn't always have to be one. So that means that you have different principalities, and then you're looking at the dominion, in charge of all of these things. So what does the case number NG02022022 means? Now, this is talking about the new Nigeria. So in the next session, we will be now taking you away from the spiritual and spooky stuff, and then we're bringing into the astral, the cosmic level, and also the physical level, and that's where everything gets interesting.